You have pressed play on Obsessed with Assessment podcast, and we've got a very interesting assessment in the news show in store for you. This is Sam Denno and Emma Rose McHale. We're getting an easy ride in this episode, Emma. Probably it's worth you saying something at the start, because otherwise you might miss your opportunity.
Hello. That's my contribution so far. No, this is nice. It's nice for people to hear other people's voices and opinions.
Yeah.
Especially ones that are, have a bit of gravitas behind them, I think.
The other day, I sat down with assessment specialist Dr Mick Walker for a long conversation about all things assessment. I was keen to get his thoughts on, in particular, the curriculum and assessment review that's going on as we're recording, and you'll hear our conversation next. Mick has worked for or with numerous educational assessment related bodies during his long career, including the National Curriculum Council, Ofqual and the DFE, and he's currently the president of the Chartered Institute of Educational Assessors. Having been involved in national curriculum and assessment reviews before, he was able to share his hot takes on this latest round. So with the curriculum assessment review that's going on right now, do you see sort of mirroring of all of these questions sort of just all being regurgitated again, sort of from all the different sort of reforms, reinventions that you've overseen over the years?
I'm always open to a curriculum assessment review, and I'm glad it's kind of like a compound noun, curriculum and assessment, because I think the two always should go in. Yeah. Curriculum should always lead. I'm absolutely clear about that. What do we want our kids to know, understand, and can do? That's fine. Then we can work out how best to assess it. The assessment shouldn't be the other way around, which tends to be the case. It's driven too often by assessment. But where I worry is that our model of curriculum development in this country, I think, is seriously flawed. And again, I've been party to that over the years, as I mentioned, going right back to the early 90s. But I think the model is that it seems to be that every time we get a change of government, we have a curriculum review. So it's what I describe as a big bang type review. And I think that's totally wrong, because it's often too much all at one time. It's too much to take in, too much to do. Yeah. It's often driven by political dogma, which again I totally accept that ministers are voted in, democratically to do this kind of thing. So I'm not undemocratic. But the problem is, if it's driven by political dogma, it's dangerous. So I think we should have a model that is more evolutionary. From where we started, gradually change things, because things do change, as we know. There's new developments in science, or there's new literature to look at, or whatever it might be, or new discoveries in geography, or whatever it might be. So it should constantly be modified, updated, but it should be more evolutionary rather than this big bang thing, which just causes uncertainty and upheaval. And yeah. I think on the back of that, then it then has consequences for the key stage assessments and the GCSEs and A levels, because things then need to be realigned back to them. So we've got it's a knock-on effect. And I know over the years we did, now and again we might have had a kind of a dive into key stage 3, and some modifications would be made there, and everyone gives it a thumbs up, and then they start to realise, hang on, that now has consequences for key stage 2 and key stage 4. So some more work would. So that evolutionary thing needs careful management, so we don't do daft stuff like that. And I think the other thing I'd say on this is that I do worry about. I think I'd describe it as a vortex of self-interest. When you get these big, looks into the curriculum and consultations, you get powerful bodies wading in there, subject associations or whatever it might be, teacher associations, all have a place in this. I'm not denying that for one minute, but some have got more power than others, and they can tend to lead, and they're all quite understandably self-interested as well. The geographers want to, they want to build geography, they want to make it important. But yeah, I am a believer in having a national curriculum, but with room for manoeuvre. There's nothing, the 88 Act that brought it in, there's nothing in there that says how schools have to teach it. It's down to schools to do that. I think they need to have more time to consider that. They need more knowledge about curriculum development, because I think that's been squeezed out of the system over the years, because it's been a kind of an imposed curriculum, if you like. And if you talk to most teachers or head teachers, when you talk about the curriculum, it generally tends to be the national curriculum they talk about. Or as we found from Ofsted when they were reviewing the framework last time, that people talk about the timetable. Whereas for me, the curriculum is everything that goes on in the school, and that, that should be the starting point.
Yeah.
And that, that's when you should be working out how much maths, English, science, etc. to do, and being given scope to localise it to the needs of the particular children that you're teaching, and the opportunities that are there locally. Historically, you was drawing on historical things within the catchment area in which you work. Where I think all this should start, my starting point is, what is the purpose of schooling? And we see lots of things, and I see lots of things on Twitter where they talk about the education system or educating children. That doesn't just happen in schools. That education is happening all the time. In fact, probably most of it happens after 4 o'clock on an evening with kids, or before 9 in the morning, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think we should have a little bit of dialogue, and certainly before any review, about what do we want out of school. And I think even more so now than when I was involved in the 90s, because you'll know as much as anybody that given COVID and all the things that happen in society now, every time I see something on the news, God forbid, about stabbing or drug abuse or well-being or whatever, it nearly always finishes with somebody saying, we want schools to start doing more on this or more on that. So it's all, everything gets thrown at schools. That maybe that is the place to do it. And if parents are not equipped to do that, then maybe it should be done in schools. But when you think of what was going on in COVID, and I go to schools now where they're still supplying clothes for kids, where they're feeding kids, they're still calling at the house to make sure they're okay if they haven't turned in for school. That used to be kind of the job of the social workers when I taught. It's now thrown on schools. Now, if we want schools to do that as a society, then let's agree to do that. But then let's give them the resources to do that. The training is. If you're taught to teach geography, you're not necessarily the best social worker in the place, or maths teacher, or whatever it might be. So I think we need to spend a bit more time, especially now, post-COVID. And we've got, as we know, record numbers of kids not turning in for school, the absentee rate, the record numbers homeschooling. Perhaps we need to stand back a little bit and think, so what do we want out of schools? Is it the EBAC? Is that the be all and end all, or is there something else that we need to reflect on?
Are you encouraged about the way that this latest review is being conducted? Do you think they are asking those questions and seriously looking to address them?
I think they're serious. I'll give them that. And I wouldn't knock any individual. Becky and colleagues, they'll all be doing this to the best of their ability. I'm absolutely convinced that. And I did go to one of the meetings it was in Oldham just before Christmas. There's a couple of panel members there, but if I'm being brutally honest, I do question: is this the right panel? Have they got the right skill set? What is that skill set? It's quite a demand to rip somebody out of a school who might be a fantastic head teacher or from a university or whatever, doing a great job. But are they the right person or persons to make judgments on the curriculum? Because I think it belongs to society. I don't think it's down to educators as such, to teachers. The curriculum should be what we as a society want. But I think Becky was right when she said when she picked her a panel, she wasn't going to get a token person from industry, because I think that is absolutely right. Because in fact, at this goes back to the Vortex thing. The group of people I was talking to at this review meeting, consultation meeting, there was a person there, lovely, absolutely lovely person, but wanted more maths, further maths is the be all and end all of life, because she represented the engineering community. Then there was some stood up who wanted more on well-being, because the way kids are struggling with issues at the moment, so there should be more of that on the curriculum. So they're all kind of piling in with their stuff, all being totally honest about it and really enthusiastic about it. So God bless them for that, and I'm not knocking that, but you've got to work out, is that really what we want in our schools, and where do we want all this further math? How many engineers do we really need? Do we need everyone to be doing further maths, as this person was saying? And I think their basic thing is they wanted to hear about what works in the current system, what isn't helpful, and then suggestions for improvements. I mean, it's massive stuff, isn't it? It's just so, and you'll find that one person will say this works terribly well, and somebody else absolutely loathes it. They want to muscle things out. And I think there is a case for reducing content. It is, when you look at the national curriculum, it's a kind of a strange document when you've got a list of words that kids have to learn. It always struck me the word 8 is in there. It's one of the list of words. And I always think, nine didn't make it, where's 7? I'm sure there's good reasons, linguistic reasons for having the word 8 in there. But it's kind of, it's serious stuff really about what do we put in a curriculum that's becoming statutory, because it's all going to come back to being statutory. You have to, the Conservatives changed that so that free schools and academies weren't governed by it. But interesting, so I'm a trustee of in a couple of places. If you go in and watch a maths lesson, there isn't like an alternative universe of mathematics that they've discovered in academies. It tends to be the same stuff that's in the national curriculum document. So I think it's a really hard task for them. I feel for them, but I think again, if we had that more evolutionary model, we could at least trial some of these things. That's what will happen on the back of this at some point. I'm guessing another big thick document will come out. It might not be as thick. It might have a few different angles in it, and then assessment arrangements will no doubt change on the back of that. But it'll be that big bang thing when really, we ought to be doing this through monitoring and research, rather than a kind of everybody wade in and throw the sixpenny worth in. Because I think, we on the back of this, some good things can be thrown out and some hot things can come in, and then we'll know in 5 years' time, if we get another government, we'll do it all again. And that's the bit that. So yeah, I do wish them well. I'm sure their intentions are totally in the right place, but I don't think the system is equipped to support them or whoever else it might be. And I think it was the last Conservative in the white paper that the last government put forward. They talked about having an arm's length curriculum body, and if you think now, we haven't got such a thing. We had QCA and QCDA and SCAR and things before that. I think we ought to have an independent body that is monitoring this stuff, that is developing it, that is definitely not politically driven, and has the freedom to advise ministers. Oh, I accept, they will accept or not that advice. But I think one of the best things that could come out of this is the establishment of a body going forward that would monitor, that would trial, that would experiment, that would find where things work well and share those things, rather than this big back thing. So I think we've got the same kind of model as we've had in the past, which is why I'm less confident that it'll achieve what I think it should achieve or could achieve. The model now is just government turnover, curriculum review.
Fascinating stuff.
The fact that it's called a curriculum and assessment review shows that they're holding the curriculum content and then the assessments that are linked to it with, equal weighting.
So one of the things that I liked about what Mick said was that assessment should follow curriculum, like curriculum should be the driver, and then assessment kind of should serve curriculum.
Yeah, I do agree with that, obviously.
But you're right. I think it would be nice to think that they were given an equal amount of attention. I like Mick's idea about the about having a body that works outside of regime change, that can keep things ticking over, keep building on the legacy of past educational changes, past assessment changes, without it having to be reinvented every 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and the reinvention's always massive.
Did Mick describe it as a vortex of self-interest, which was wonderful language? But it is that sort of thing of, okay, well, it's not about, it's often not about informed scientific research into what needs to change. It is about somebody having an agenda that they just can't shake off, and they're just going to do their agenda no matter whether or not they make sense.
Yeah.
Now, we are undergoing a curriculum and assessment review, and there will be a big kind of line in the sand where we say, oh, we're going in this direction now. So it's all happening again, and it's exactly what Mick is describing. But potentially it'd be nice to think, because they're listening to educators, they're talking to people on the ground, they're talking to researchers as well. It would be nice to think that something like that could be created, some sort of a body could be created that then gets to oversee the way that curriculum and assessment might move, kind of going forwards into the future. Well, I think that's it. I think that wraps up this episode. Don't forget that you can reach us on assessment@twinkle.co.uk.
Let us know anything that you want to know about assessment as well. Happy to chat.
Thanks for listening.